On yes, thank you, Brother Pigeon. So let me start again. This is a CSG meeting. My name is Brother Christian Kwame Agbodza, and I am currently the chair of the Consensusism Study Group. We are a philosophical and ideological grouping. We meet at various times during the week. Our highlight meeting is on Thursdays, when we discuss philosophy and ideology with specific reference to the African Revolution. So we discuss consensusism. And on Tuesdays, we learn Swahili. And then on Saturdays, we meet to discuss the state of the African nation in terms of its liberation, unification, and development. And on Sunday, Brother Pigeon leads a group that, or leads a discussion that looks at the question of dictatorship. So that's a meeting that he chairs on Sundays. Welcome everyone. Welcome Brother Barry, Brother The King, Sir Windhoek, Brother Bongani, Brother Carrington, Sister Tapua, Brother Pigeon, who is our co-chair and also our head of administration. So I'd like to welcome you all. So today our topic is the international financial institutions. And we did ask for anyone who would like to come forward and do a presentation for us. And in as much as we circulated the request widely, we did not get anyone who was prepared to do a presentation for us on the international financial institutions. So one of us in-house, because we also have economists in our midst, decided to do the presentation, and that's myself. So I'll do a short presentation, after which we'll open the floor for discussion. So let me officially welcome you to today's discussion. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and including those who will join us online or watch our video online, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting. Thank you for joining us as we discuss the role and impact of international financial institutions, IFIs, on global and regional development with particular reference to Africa. After my short presentation, which will be about maybe 20 to half an hour, I think about 20 minutes to half an hour, not longer than that, we'll open the floor so that your insights and perspectives, which are invaluable, will be brought forward as we explore this important topic. So let's dive in. Brother Pigeon, I believe I can dive in now. Is that correct?
Yes, Brother Kwame, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much. Before I continue, do we have anyone else who has belatedly come forward to present?
None so far. From my side, I haven't got any feedback.
Okay, thank you.
But, Brother Kwame,
yes.
I don't know if it might touch on debts. I have a research we did some times back to show who do we owe and how much do we owe them from various lenders. If that will also be useful, I can check on it.
I agree. That will be useful. I will touch on debt dependency in my presentation. So if you have the details like you do, that would be great. So let me continue. And I did some slides which I'll share afterwards. So brothers and sisters, what I will be presenting as you listen will provide concrete examples that demonstrate that IFIs have consistently impeded the vision of a united Africa under a single continental government, as Nkrumah had envisaged. You remember Nkrumah was the champion for continental government of Africa. I shall show that IFIs did this by reinforcing fragmentation, perpetuating dependency, undermining our sovereignty, and promoting policies that prioritize foreign interests and thus act as obstacles to our African unity and self-reliance. CSG believes that to achieve the vision of a united Africa, the four fundamental nationalities of Africa, by which we mean the Niger Congo people, because there are only four broad ethnic groups on the continent. Anyone who tells you that we are so many, we can't unite, are just telling lies. They are the Niger Congo group, the Afro-Asiatic group, the Nilo-Saharan group, and then the Khoisan group. These are the only four groups on the entire African continent. And the African Union and the Commission belongs to them. We want to be clear. The African Union does not belong to neo-colonialism. It belongs to us. It is ours, however deficient it is. So the way they've done it is that they have so what we need to do, what these groups need to do, and we are calling for a constitutional conference from these four groups to send their representatives to a constitutional conference so that we can agree on a constitution for the African continent. We are yet to get that, but that is one of our goals. And so what we need to do, these four groups need to do, is to reduce dependency on the international financial institutions, and they'll do that by exploring alternative financing mechanisms, strengthen African institutions such as the African Development Bank, and then the AU itself, so that the AU and the AFDB will lead the continent's development. IFIs are not interested in developing Africa. They are interested in ensuring that foreign domination persists. And then thirdly, reject neo-colonial policies. We need to pursue independent economic models that prioritize industrialization and our self-reliance. And then finally, we need to achieve political unity. And this needs some work towards a continental government that can advocate for Africa's interests on the global stage. So let me start by asking, what are the international financial institutions? What are they? Well, there are three groups. The first group are what we call the global IFIs, and they are the International Monetary Fund. I will not go into depth as to what they do and so on, because that would take too long. If you are interested, let us know. We will help you. So I'll just list them, as it were, so you know what we are talking about, the kind of cat we are talking about, yeah? Whether it's a black cat, a white cat, blue cat, or whatever it is, yeah? Cat as in CAT. So they are three groups. The international, so under the global IFIs, so we have the global IFIs, then we have the regional development IFIs, and then we have the other multilateral financial institutions. Now, under the global IFIs, we have the International Monetary Fund, we have the World Bank Group. So I know normally we say the World Bank, but actually the World Bank is made up of 5 institutions. They are the IBRD, the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the International Development Association, the International Finance Corporation, IFC, then MIGA, not Make America Great Again, but the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, and then the International Center for Settlement and Investment Disputes, ICSID. And then the third IFI is the Bank for International Settlements, and that's where the central banks basically do their business. The second group of IFIs are the regional development banks, and there are 5 of them, 5 main ones: the African Development Bank, the AFDB, the Asian Development Bank, the ADB, the Inter-American Development Bank, this for South America mainly, that's the IDB, then the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EBRD, and then the Islamic Development Bank, ISDB. Now, other multinational institutions or IFIs have now been established, and the notable one is the New Development Bank by the NDB, which has been set up by the BRICS countries, yeah, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Then we have the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB. So these are what we mean by the IFIs, the International Financial Institutions. I think you will agree with me that we cannot lump the regional development banks together with the new development bank by the BRICS country. We cannot lump them together with the IFIs, with the global IFIs when we are looking at this, because the African Development Bank, as you know, is interested in the development of Africa. So, for instance, last week we discussed PIDA, which is the program for the infrastructure development of Africa, and we discussed this at length. And the AFDB is the financing bank that is pushing this, but as we all know, it hasn't been successful in mobilizing the kind of funds it needs for the infrastructure development of Africa. So to summarize, those are the IFIs. Now, let's go to what people claim are their key functions. And here I'll be very brief because these are technical. The first is that they provide financial assistance, loans, grants, things like that. Secondly, that they provide technical assistance and advisory services, expertise and guidance on things like economic policy, governance, etc. And that thirdly, they do research and data collection. I think we have all used World Bank data, haven't we? When we are researching, the World Bank has a vast amount of data on almost every African country, our population growth, these, that, they have all that. So research and data collection. And then finally, they promote global and regional cooperation. This is the argument. That is, a facilitate dialogue, cooperation among member countries, and so on. So these are the key functions of the IFIs. And then there are those who have said that, who have criticized the IFIs, that they have challenges and criticisms. And one of them is that they impose conditionalities on borrowing countries. Also that they are not effective. And then thirdly, that the governance structures of these IFIs include the dominance of major economies and like America and America. They dominate these institutions, and we don't really have a voice in these institutions. So overall, international financial institutions, the argument is that they are vital players in the global economy, that they provide essential support for our development and stability. Can you believe that? But that's what they say. And but they also face significant challenges and criticisms that need to be addressed to enhance their effectiveness and legitimacy. So those who make this argument are basically saying that all we need to do is to reform the IFIs. If only we can reform them, Africa will be developed, Africa will be united, and Africa will be liberated. Unfortunately, some of us don't think so. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you concrete examples to show how the IFIs are really not for us. So far, I have looked at what the IFIs are, the three types. I have looked at their functions. I have mentioned some challenges and criticisms that they face. And I want to then move on to concrete examples that show that as far as we are concerned, when I say we here, I mean the African people, we should be asking for them to be abolished, the global ones at least, in the same way as Trump has abolished USAID because of the deep state that was against them. I think you all know the story that Trump was almost assassinated, and it's believed that it's come from the deep state within America itself. Now, that shouldn't surprise us because it is the state itself that assassinated President Kennedy. So we are aware that American institutions, not only do they overthrow governments outside, they even overthrow their own governments inside if they don't like them. And that's the deep state. But before I do that, I want to mention some what you might call arguments in favor of IFIs in Africa. So they tell us that these institutions are vital for financial support, especially for infrastructure projects, healthcare, education, poverty reduction programs. Dr. Arikana Kwao has in a recent Al Jazeera program asked USAID, if it still exists, that is, to tell us in which country they've been successful in Africa. They should tell us that they were in Ghana, they did ABC, and Ghana now has a thriving healthcare, education, and poverty reduction program. They should tell us. We are still waiting. That's the first argument for IFI. Secondly, technical expertise, that they offer technical assistance and policy advice, which can help African governments improve governance. Can you imagine? African governments improve governance. Which African government has improved governance under IFIs? And then the third is crisis response, that during economic crises such as COVID-19 pandemic, IFIs have provided emergency funding and support to help African countries stabilize their economies and protect vulnerable populations. Yes, we are meant to believe that. And then finally, another argument for IFI is the global cooperation. I would say, well, the argument is IFIs facilitate international cooperation and dialogue, providing a platform for African countries to engage with the global community and advocate for their interests. The question is, why can't a united Africa just engage in its own global cooperation? Does it need? Are we kindergartens? Are we children whose hands need to be held by globalists, so that we are so childish that we can't even organize a cooperation forum for ourselves, that we need IFIs to do that for us? Come on. So I'm going to, as you can see, I'm very skeptical. I am personally skeptical. I don't know the CSG's official position. We'll discuss that and come with our official position. What I'm sharing is my private position on IFI. Not everybody here agrees or thinks that BRICS are a great idea. Let's be clear. Not everybody here agrees that China is doing a good job in Africa. Yeah, not everybody here. Not people may be against the West. It doesn't mean that they like China. Yeah, for example, some people would think that China is doing a lousy job in DRC Congo, in the mineral exploitation and extraction of resources, and so on and so forth. So this is my private position. So the first argument against IFIs are that they reinforce fragmentation. So I'm now looking at IFIs from the point of view of the liberation, unification, development of Africa. So let's be clear, this is what I'm doing. Now, so one, they reinforce fragmentation. I'll give you an example. And this was evidenced by Graham Harris in 2004 in his publication, Adjustment with a Human Face. In his publication, The World Bank and Africa, The Construction of Governance States. UNICEF in 1967 also agreed with this position. And this is what happened. The IMF in the 80s and 90s, along with the World Bank, imposed structural adjustment programs on African countries as a condition for loans. And these programs required countries to cut public spending, privatize state-owned enterprises, and liberalize trade. I personally wrote enormously on Ghana Web against this free market, which as an economist, I knew to be a fraud. And there's no such thing as a free market. It's just euphemism for neo-colonial domination. Anyway, the impact on African unity is that SARS forced African countries to focus on individual survival rather than regional cooperation. So, for example, trade liberalization policies discourage intra-African trade by prioritizing exports to global markets. I remember J.J. Rawlings of Ghana in those days going into the hinterland, getting cocoa that had been on farms that are rotting, and he mobilized the whole country to get these cocoa beans, to the ports, For what? So that they can be exported out of the country. For whose benefit? Your guess is as good as mine. Anyway, so that's what SAP did. And so this undermined efforts toward regional integration, such as the African Economic Community, AEC, which aim to create a continent-wide common market. So that's the first argument against IFIs, the global IFIs, that they reinforce fragmentation. The second argument is that they perpetuate economic dependency. And here, Brother Pidgin is going to share with us, when I'm done, arguments or data on debt dependency. Now, again, there are two authors, Leon in the Kumana and James Boyce, in 2011 published a paper on this, titled Africa's Odious Debts, How Foreign Loans and Capital Flight Bled a Continent. Right? So this is not me saying it, by the way. These are experts, if you like. These are scholars writing on this topic. So if people
Brother Kwame,
yes,
you are at a speed of 160 kilometers an hour.
I'm speaking too fast.
you
think I'm speaking too fast?
Yeah. Can you just slow down 2 minutes per second?
I know. I'm so excited. I might not. Okay. All right. So we do point taken. I'll slow down a bit. So
before economic dependency perpetuation, what did you say? What's the first point?
Yes, the first point was the reinforcing fragmentation. So just so you know, I will share a slide on this. Okay. Yeah, some slides, so that
yes,
yeah, so that we will, so that those who and we will share it also on our YouTube channel, so those who want to can have a look. But I'm happy to slow down. Thank you. So the second point, as I was saying, is perpetuating economic dependency. And as I said, Brother Pidgin will give us some data on that. And an example is a debt crisis in sub-Saharan Africa. What happened? Well, African countries borrowed heavily from the IFIs in the 70s and 80s. For what? To fund development projects. However, what happened? Falling commodity prices and rising interest rates led to a debt crisis. By the 1990s, many African countries were spending more on debt servicing than on health and education. Now, think about that. Think about that. Now, if the IFIs had our interest at heart, do you not think that a human face, this is why UNICEF wrote their paper on the human face of these things, right? You would have thought that if African countries, already poor, are spending more on debt servicing than on health and education, that an institution that is interested in human development will say, actually, this is not right, and seek to solve it. But no. Are we surprised? The same institutions, some of them, as you know, are experts in killing women and children in various ways through bombs. You all know what has been happening lately on the world stage. They are experts at killing women and children. These are the institutions at the global level. This is what they do. They are experts on that. Anyway, so what happened to African unity? Well, debt dependency forced African countries to prioritize repayments to these IFIs over regional and continental initiatives. For example, Nigeria, the powerhouse on the continent, one of Africa's largest economies, if not the biggest, spent billions on debt servicing in the 1990s, diverting resources away from regional infrastructure projects like the West African gas pipeline. Those of you who remember what happened in Sierra Leone and the role of Nigeria in bringing that nonsense to an end, when the Nigerian military got to Sierra Leone and put a stop to the nonsense that was going on. Right? I hope you all remember that ECOMOG. It is the Nigerians that stopped and brought an end and brought sanity. Right? Many people don't realize the role of Nigeria in international affairs. All right, and people keep denigrating Nigeria in many ways, which is part of the neo-colonial propaganda against the giant of Africa, and which many Africans have bought into. Okay, and so on and so forth. I don't want to digress, but the South African artist, the reggae artist, who was shot, those who shot him said they thought he was Nigerian. So it was okay to shoot a Nigerian because he was driving a big car and looked rich, and so on and so forth. People forget the contribution of Nigeria to the anti-apartheid movement. The amount of money they put in. People have short memories, and today South Africans don't even recognize because maybe nobody has told them. You know, we sing in CSG the song, Fire in Soweto. That song that lighted Africa. I was a young man at the time, and we were playing those songs. Fire in Soweto. It just fired us up. And young as we were, when we wanted to go to South Africa and help liberate South Africa. Again, the young people of South Africa today, or they have forgotten all that. They see us as foreigners and so on and so forth. There are South Africans here. They can tell us more. But the point I'm making is that Nigeria suffered under the IFIs, perpetuating economic dependency. When a country like Nigeria, with its vast resources, human and physical, right, can become economically dependent, then you know there's a problem. When they cannot sort out Boko Haram in their own territory, then you know there's a problem. You know there are forces bigger than Nigeria behind it. And the only force that can match those forces is an African government. And yet, that is still not in place. So that is the second point against the IFIs, perpetuating economic dependence. The third one is they undermine sovereignty. Again, Patrick Bond, those of you who know Patrick Bond, published something called Looting Africa, the Economics of Exploitation. So those of us who think that there are people who don't love Africa or want do not have our interests at heart. Please, there are scholars, there are activists on the global stage who want Africa to be better, right? But if you want people to help you put a load on your head, the African adage says, at least attempt to lift it yourself to put it on your knee, and then they will help you to put it on your head. But if you yourself are not doing any attempt to carry the load, how are people supposed to help you? How are they supposed to help you? How are they supposed to help you? So let me give you an example. In the 1990s, Zambia, the country of Kenneth Kaunda. I remember when we were in school, we read the book by Kenneth Kaunda. Now we'll say President Kenneth Kaunda. At the time, he wasn't. The title of his novel was Zambia Shall Be Free. We read it in school. Yes, we did. As we did other African authors like Chinua Achebe's book, Zambia was forced to privatize its copper mines. For what? As a condition for IMF loans. The mines were sold to foreign corporations at low prices, and Zambia received what? Minimal benefits from its own resources. Now, brothers and sisters, did I not say earlier, did they not say that one of the functions of the IFIs, didn't they say that one of its functions is technical assistance and advisory services? offering expertise and guidance on economic policy governance and project implementation. If that is really a function of the IFI, what should they have done for Zambia? Should they not have put together an expert team to help Zambia sort out its mining industry? But no, that would be too good for the African people. No, that's what you shouldn't do. You should not bring together technical expertise, right? Even though that is the function of IFIs. No, don't do that. Don't bring together technical expertise and advisory services to help Zambia sort out its mining industry. Rather, what should you do? Yes, you should undermine its sovereignty by helping it to sell off lucrative mining resources. So these are the enemies of Africa. These people don't love us. They want us to die. So what was the impact on unity? Well, from the African perspective, this undermines Zambia's sovereignty and ability to use its resources for national or regional development. It also set a precedent for other African countries, discouraging collective resource management and industrialization. Now, industrialization, that is what we are yet to start implementing on African soil. So that's the third one, they undermine sovereignty. Fourth, they stifle regional and continental initiatives. Here in this very CSG meeting last Saturday, we discussed a program for infrastructure development in Africa, PIDA. And we discussed the fact that it has struggled to secure funding, which has delayed critical regional infrastructure projects. Yes, it has made some achievements, but it hasn't been able to mobilize the resources it needs for all kinds of reasons, some of which you know. For example, the siphoning of our resources from the continent. I had a call from a gentleman in Dubai the other day telling me about property in Dubai. And I said to him, you realize Dubai is becoming the criminal capital, in the south, He said, no. I said, well, you realize that our gold end up in Dubai. You realize that, and resources from Mali, but you realize they also somehow turn up in Dubai. What is happening in Dubai? How come suddenly these resources, our resources, are popping up in Dubai? And he argued against me, and I said to him, well, I'm just sharing with you what is happening on the global stage. That's how we see it. You may disagree, but that's how we see it, that Dubai has become a route through which our resources have been siphoned. Anyway, the point I'm making is that the ADB was established to provide financing for African development projects, but it has often been overshadowed by the World Bank and IMF, right? So, for example, the World Bank has frequently funded and deliberately competing projects to reduce the AFDB's influence. That's what they've done. What's the impact on unity? Well, this marginalization of African-led institutions weakens the continent's ability to pursue collective development goals. And I use the PIDA as an example. Please, it's not me saying it, right? This is by Edward V.K.J. Cox in his publication, The African Development Bank, the First Decade. This was his argument. So because nobody starts accusing CSG of making untruthful comments, we know there are always apologists, even amongst us, for these institutions. We know, they are everywhere. Crooks and criminals, paid off. We know. So before they start saying, I am the one, please, I am giving you publications. These are published documents, which I'll make available, as I said, after this presentation. Then they promote neoliberal policies. Yeah. Now, interestingly, the World Bank itself Anyway, the Public Services International, there's an organization called the Public Services International, published a document called The World Bank and Water Privatization, a policy that doesn't work. What happened? Well, in the 1990s, this is an example, by the way, of how they promote neoliberal policies. Ghana was forced to privatize its water sector as a condition for IMF and World Bank loans. The privatization led to higher water prices and reduced access for poor communities. Interestingly, South Africa had also, at the time or thereabouts, also experienced water privatization. We had a meeting in London that was attended by various groups, and I was there. And what happened in Ghana was that interestingly, the entire, if you like, scholarly community and activists somehow were able to join forces and oppose the IMF in a way that hadn't happened with other sectors. It was very interesting. So I remember asking the South Africans, so why did you wait for it to be imposed on you? Why didn't you fight against it like Ghana is doing? Anyway, the point is that such policies prioritize foreign corporate interests over African welfare, making it harder for countries to collaborate on regional public goods like water and energy. And this undermines the spirit of unity and collective development. Then that's number 5. There's one more, and then I will conclude. The number 6 role of the IFIs is that they exploit Africa's resources, and it doesn't help us. Friends of the Earth, I hope you know who they are. They are an NGO, an international NGO. They have no time for nice arguments. They have no time. They don't take money from governments. They don't take money from corporates. They are financed by individuals like us who want the world to change. And Friends of the Earth does things that other NGOs cannot do. They are an interesting organization, and we do well to link up with them in a way that we haven't yet done as Africans, right? Now, they published a document called The World Bank in the Democratic Republic of Congo. What happened? What happened? Well, the World Bank, this World Bank. If you ask me, I'll say they are a criminal organization, if you ask me. The World Bank funded mining projects in the DRC, right? Not for the benefit of the Africans. No. These mining projects were to benefit foreign corporations while displacing local communities and causing environmental damage. Now, if this is not a wicked institution, then please help me redefine what wicked means. Please. What is the impact on unity? This exploitation of resources undermines Africa's ability, and this is a key point for me. All this talk about poverty reduction for me is complete nonsense. Africa should not be talking about poverty reduction. We should be talking about wealth creation, sharing, wealth creation, and its distribution, because we are a wealthy continent. It's an insult to us when those who steal our resources and become wealthy then turn around and say, what we need is poverty reduction. America, the United States of America, was built by Africans. It is we who built America. It's we who made America what it is. And as Dr. Arikana was saying, it is we who made Europe what it is. Europe is Europe because of us. Apart from the fact that we are the fathers and mothers of all these groups, all ethnic groups, they take our origin from us. Okay? Apart from that, talking about it, the mother doesn't need wealth reduction. What the mother needs is her wealth back so she can take care of her children. Grown men and women still sucking the breasts of a woman. Come on, you can do better than that. It's a disgrace to the West. And then they turn around and pretend that they are those who are really helping us, that we are those who are actually receiving aid, when they are the recipients of aid and have always been from us. So what am I saying? I am saying that the exploitation of resources undermines Africa's ability to use its wealth for continental development. It also fuels conflicts, as we can all see in the DRC, where competition over resources has destabilized the region. Right? And Brother Coco here has shared with us in the past, the white malice and how the extraction of uranium led to the illegal and illegitimate murder of the president of Congo, Patrice Lumumba. Something for which Africa is yet to claim reparations for. We haven't yet started, though. We haven't started at all. When we start, they will all have to pay reparations. Reparative justice has to be done. It's not only Jews who it's the Europeans that killed them anyway. It's the Europeans that killed their own fellow Europeans who were Jews. We had nothing to do with it. And yet they paid compensation to them in millions and millions and millions. Why does Africa not also deserve reparative justice? So this is the sixth. So to summarize, the 6 reasons are: IFIs reinforce fragmentation. In fact, you can argue that the regional institutions also reinforce fragmentation, because they are only looking at their region, the East African region. So far, they haven't even united the East Africa yet. They haven't done that. So they're not really helping in uniting us. Anyway, so 1, reinforcing fragmentation. 2, perpetuating economic dependency. 3, undermining sovereignty. 4, stifling regional and continental initiatives. 5, promoting neoliberal policies. And 6, exploiting Africa's resources. So to summarize then, to bring my presentation to an end, I thought I would do it for half an hour. I'm gone more than that. I'm very sorry about that. I didn't mean to. So I have in this presentation provided concrete examples that demonstrate how IFIs have consistently impeded the vision of a united Africa under a single continental government. I have showed that IFIs did this by reinforcing fragmentation, perpetuating dependency, undermining sovereignty, and promoting policies that prioritize foreign interests and thus act as obstacles to African unity and self-reliance. Leaving our unification, liberation, development to neo-colonialism is not the way forward. So we need to achieve the vision of a united Africa. And for that, we are calling on the 4 main traditional ethnic African groups: the Niger-Congo group, the Afro-Asiatic group, the Nilo-Saharan group, and the Khoisan group. We are the ethnic, if you like, owners of which is we who own Africa. It's ours. All right. So we are saying that through the African Union, which is our institution, by the way, even though it's dominated by or funded by neo-colonialists, which African institution isn't, it's still ours. So through the institutions and its commission, the African Union Commission, let us reduce dependency on IFIs, strengthen our institutions, reject neo-colonial policies, and promote, or shall I say, achieve political unity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Kwame. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Kwame, for that. I hope, as you have promised, you will share some of your presentation with us.
Yes, I'll share the slides.
Okay. I have been able to attach in our chat the book Zambia Shall Be Free.
Excellent.
And I've also attached the book Dead Aid, since you've touched on aid, by Dambisha Moyo. Yeah, other books are equally available on any of the debt and those issues, including the looting machine and the offshore accounts where our money flows to. Now, having said that, Brother Kwame, I think you've touched on very important aspects. I'll just do a brief analysis in regards to debt in Africa. But I'll start by putting my point one, that I don't believe in reforming relationship with international financial institutions. I believe in total cutting the relationship between us as a continent with international financial institutions. People like Burkina Faso and even the clarion call by Thomas Sankara in 1986 African Union, when he was talking about the issues of debt, which then the international financial institutions claim to have been holding us accountable to, Thomas Sankara presented a very strong statement. He asked, who do we owe debt? They owe us debt that they cannot repay, and that's the bloods of our ancestors and the suffering of our people. Thomas Sankara went ahead and asked one thing. He said, if we pay debt, we will die. But if we don't pay them, they will not die, because debt has taken seriously a lot of our resources. If you look at the debt analysis, for example, in Kenya, it is said that out of 100 shillings, 70 shillings from Kenya is going to repay debt, which means the citizens only remain with 30 shillings. But in this process of debt, Brother Kwame, you've mentioned, there's an aspect of odious debt. Kenya, for example, is very clear that the neo-colonial puppet leaders in government use debt as a means of stealing from people. Our debt records that was released, and I have a copy of that document, indicates that the government cannot account for over 24 trillion Kenya shillings debt. Our debt, what you call our debt deficit between expenditure and revenue between 10 years is only 1.3 trillion for 10 years, since 2013 to 2023. So we only had a deficit between expenditure and revenue of 1.3 trillion. But it's very clear that within those 17 years, the government claimed to have borrowed 7.6 trillion, but the deficit was only 1.3 trillion. And the government claims to have repaid 9 trillion. Well, actual deficit that ought to be borrowed is 1.3 trillion. And debt records in our country still indicate we have 11 trillion debt. There's a clear indication of over 20 trillion disappearing in the name of debt. But again, I will just say one thing, as the same Sankara quotes, that debt is a neo-colonial way of recolonizing Africa on the basis of Thomas Sankara. And Thomas Sankara asked in the same meeting that they should pay us. They ran our country. During colonial slavery, they took over control of our country for so many years. Then they claim that we repaid them. Well, they have used our country to make them who they are. Brother Kwame, you mentioned, for example, US is actually what it is through Africa. And what Arobni says, how Europe underdeveloped Africa. I'll share the book as well. And there's another book that was written to say how Africa developed Europe. These are clear indications in regards to this. But permit me, sorry for deviating a bit. I believe again in one of what Brother Kwame said, that the African Union has a responsibility to bring forth our ethno-linguistic groupings. But again, African Union is formed on neo-colonial states that were created in 1880 something during the Berlin. It's not based on ethno-linguistic African setup, but rather on a neo-colonial states, which then makes it very hard a bit. But I will go straight to the debt analysis a bit. It's just a brief one, maybe 5 minutes if more. The data analysis indicates, these are research that we compiled some times back for CSG, almost so many years ago, maybe 2 years. It will indicate, for example, these are debt records for China. The China to Africa debt records have been going up since 2009 up to 2021. It started from 9,000 265 in terms of million dollars, and to 63,228. Those are bilateral. There's multilateral debt from China, there's private debt from China, and all these are debts that the total continent has been borrowing over a period of time, from 22,000 up to around 644 billion. These are debts in records of dollars. But also, there's a debt analysis a bit that I'll also go through. These are records that are available with us anytime. There's a debt analysis I want to go through again. I don't know if you can see my second slide. Permit me to go on my second slide a bit briefly. There's debt analysis. If you can see my document written Africa Debt, CSG Africa Debt Research. Kindly confirm if you can see that. CSG Africa Debt Research.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, this is a brief analysis that we did, and part of what we came up with is a small composition that I'll only be interested in one page to discuss. The African Debt Service. But before African Debt Service, there's what we did a bit on analysis in regards to this one. This chart is very important. This chart talks about, let me go a bit up a bit. Yes, this is who owns Africa debt. So the composition on Africa debt has changed significantly. Previously, the majority of African external debt was owned to official creditors. These included countries and multilateral lenders like World Bank and the rest, and IMF. But now China and private creditors make a large proportion of debts in Africa, meaning more debts is non-concessional. Brother Kwame will explain what is the difference in non-concessional, because I'm not an economist per se, but what that then implication does it have to our debt if it is non-concessional. Now, how much debt is owed now to whom? So if you see in Africa, for example, we have private debt, multilateral debt, and bilateral debt. So bondholders, that's the amount of debt, which is private debt, which is around 105 million. Multilateral World Bank, IDA or IDA, China bilateral debt, multilateral lenders again. These are type of debts we have from various African countries, including United States of Arabs, European Investment Bank, Kuwait, France as a country, Islamic Development Bank, Germany Federal Republic, China itself, Japan again. We have debt from Netherlands, from OPEC, Fund for International Development, Russian Federation. We have debt from Israel. We have debt from Portugal. South Africa also owns some other debts to other countries, Belgium, Spain. So all these are people who owe Africa countries some debts, including Sweden, Congo Republic is also having some other debt creditors to some other countries as well. Now, there's a debt comparison per country, and this is a big list. For example, we have compiled this from Algeria, where their debts is from, and the type of debt. So like you see Algeria alone, there's debt from Africa Development Bank, there's debt from Belgium, debt from China, debt from France, debt from Germany, debt from Italy, debt from Saudi Arabia. One country alone, all these are types of debts and where they borrowed. So they are borrowed from left, right, and center. They have debts from various parts, and it's not only Angola alone. If you go to other countries, you'll see the same thing. Angola has debt from Egypt, Israel, Italy, Korea, Luxembourg, China, all OPEC. This has been the trend of Africa. So this is a small analysis that we've done, and we have this data available with us. But again, the question then is one. We have seen recently Burkina Faso trying to develop themselves internally and using their mineral resources for the purpose of the development. From CSG point, we take that if we take good condition of our material, our matter, which is now in this case maybe our land and physical resources, we can develop continent of Africa without relying on any other thing else, because they also develop their country using majority of our resources. So I believe that the extent of people claiming any excuse for debt or relationship with international or multilateral financial institutions is just an excuse of not being prepared to use your resources to develop yourself. In fact, there are 21 countries across the world that do not even tax their people. They use their natural resources for the purpose of developing their countries. But then there are countries which give excuses that you have to borrow and borrow and borrow, and in the same process we give concession of our mineral resources. So this is just a brief thing I wanted to bring into also as a rejoinder to what Brother Kwame has said, and just to indicate again that I brought debt because if you talk of international financial institution, basically you're talking about debt and money and everything else that they control. and are trying to prove that we don't need them. And after all, they also have the resources through our resources. It means if it's not us as a continent, as a people, they can't be having what they have. So it's upon us to look internally instead of claiming, oh, cancel the debts and the rest. Let's work internally and start doing and developing our continent with the blessed resources we have. We only need right people and right thinking so that we can develop Africa. Mama Africa has all resources it takes. We don't need to depend on people who are breastfeeding from us to continue developing us. How can a mother depend on the child again while the child is still breastfeeding from the same mother? We can be free, and you have to just tell the child that you've matured enough to raise yourself. Permit me to continue developing my children, because the children of Africa are watching and are crying and are subjected to poverty, while the West and the East and the so-called are continuing to milk Mama Africa dry. Let's wake up and demand what is right for Africa. Thank you very much.
Right, so let's hear the African anthem, this time in English. Last week it was in the Swahili version. And so let's hear it in English version for those of us here to understand Swahili, Brother Pigeon. After which we shall open the floor for everyone to get involved and to share their perspective. There are we have, I did see Brother Bongani earlier. I don't know if he's still with us. Yeah, Brother Bongani is still with us. So he hopefully will share his perspective with us. Sister Chizomo, Brother Black. The General will be also speaking. I suppose, General, before we go into the discussion, I know you are ready. Could you, after the anthem, give us a presentation on the Alliance of Sahelan States, which I think we should hear from you on what is happening in that part of Africa on every Saturday. So please get ready, General. I hope you are hearing me to do a presentation on the Alliance of Sahelan States, which we didn't mention earlier. So Brother General Raspala shared with us the fact that the Alliance of Sahelan States, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, are going to introduce a new currency. That's the plan. Those of you who know the history will remember that General Olympio of Togo was murdered by the French because he dared to create a new currency for Togo and didn't want to use a French franc. And so he was assassinated on, as we understand it, on American soil in Togo, because his house borders, borders the American embassy. So the American embassy is his next door neighbor. So when the shooting started, he went there to hide. And the American ambassador gave him up for him to be shot. That is how much America is our friend. So he was then murdered. And even though the French murdered him, the French didn't want to take responsibility for murdering an African president. So they asked the soldiers to take responsibility. Nobody wanted to, except this idiot called Eyadema. He decided that he would take responsibility. And for that, the French assured him that he will rule Togo in perpetuity. Now his son is in office. And so that is the history. So for the Alliance of African States to say they want to create their own currency, it's monumental. This is groundbreaking. Even Rwanda, after they removed French as the official language and punished the French for what they did in terms of the genocide, even they are still using the franc, alongside other currencies. So even they couldn't do it. But for the young guys in the Alliance of Sahelan States to do this is monumental. It will open the door for the other French African countries to please get away from the French franc. How can your currency be produced in France? I mean, of course, there's a whole argument about why our currencies have been produced by foreigners. That's a whole different argument anyway. let me pause there. Let's hear the anthem, and then Brother General will speak to us about Alliance of Sahelian States, and then ideally one of our sisters should lead the discussion. We've got Sister Poa, we've got Sister Mara was here. I don't know that she's still here. We've got Sister Chizomo. We've got Sister Ida. One of the sisters, if one of our sisters can lead for us, I know they're always reluctant to lead, but if they can lead the discussion for us, that would be great. So let's hear the anthem, and then let's move into the discussion. So here we go. Thank you.
Let us all unite and celebrate together the victories won for our liberation. Let us dedicate ourselves to rise together to defend our liberty and unity. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa a tree of life. Let us all unite and sing together to uphold the bonds that frame our destiny. Let us dedicate ourselves to fight together for lasting peace and justice on earth. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life. Let us all unite and toil together to give the best we have to Africa, the cradle of mankind, the font of culture, our pride and hope at break of dawn. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life.
Thank you. So which sister is sharing for us? Is it going to Sister Myra, Sister Tapua, Sister Chizomo, or Sister Ida? Which one of you is going to chair for us? Right. Since there's no response, I'll nominate Sister Myra.
I'll do it.
But I've nominated you anyway. So continue. Thank
All
you.
right. Okay, so I think we were opening up the discussion to the floor, yes?
That's correct.
Okay. Greetings, members. So the discussion is now open to the floor, and I will be calling out names. So if you want to speak, please feel free to raise your hand. The first hand up I see is Elder Glenroy. Elder
Yes,
Glenroy,
greetings. I just wondered, I may have missed it, but I'm not sure if anyone has said, Kwame, if the debt has already been paid. You mentioned how much is spent on debt servicing, but I just wondered if in our discussion could we include the fact that the debt has been paid several times over. And the reason there is a debt is the way in which the loans are being calculated and the interest being put on for countries in the South. They don't pay the same rate of interest, et cetera, et cetera. So this ensures the loan remain intact. But I think from our perspective, we need to be working on the basis that the loans have been paid. We don't owe them anything. You know, I once recall Ghana candidates coming to London and seeking support from Africans in the UK. And I asked them, the question is, you know, will you be paying back the loan that's already been paid off? And it seems that the answer was that in order to maintain their position vis-a-vis the international commerce, that they have to pay back the loan, even though they agreed that the loan has been paid back. So could we introduce that aspect? Unless it's not true and people don't believe that, could we introduce that into our discussion? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So a small interruption to the flow of proceedings. My apologies. I just remembered that Brother Kwame mentioned there was a comrade that was going to give us an update on what is happening in IS. I'm so sorry, I did not get the name. Brother Kwame, could you help, please? What was the name of the comrade?
Brother Aspala, General, Anunnaki.
Okay. Brother Anunnaki, do you want to give us a update on what's happening in IS, please?
Give thanks from Africa. Blessed even to the family at large in Africa and the diaspora. Yeah. Okay, so what is happening in the AES, first of all, in the present tense, as Elder Kwame alluded to this issue of Togo. This current president of Togo is actually considering to join the AES alliance, because from what we are finding out now is that since Benin, the country of Benin and Ivory Coast, causing up with the West, didn't allow AES to trade to their ports. So it was Ghana and Togo. And I believe it still is that case. I think goods from AES leave the ports to Togo and Ghana. So now they're having talks with Togo to join the AES. Obviously, the French is not happy about that development. And also on the other side, the Cuban military experts, Venezuelan soldiers, and more Russian soldiers have just entered AES. So, also the issue of the money, the currency, they are still developing, still under development. This issue of currency, because they want to use the natural resources of Niger and Mali and Burkina Faso to use it as a backup of their currency that they are trying to introduce, African coin. So yeah, there's a lot going on. Even there's a lot of Africans from England and America and the Caribbean states that are actually getting passports and citizenships in Burkina Faso and the AS, bringing also in donations. And also there was a recent meeting with Burkina Faso and their foreign minister of China. So I think that ambition of building Burkina Faso's own cars, I think maybe China is going to assist Burkina Faso to make it on a mass scale, because already they've created their own cars, African created cars, but it's just that they need to make them now on a mass scale. So I think they're having discussions. Of course, China is going to get maybe some few uranium and lithium there, but it's fine. because at least it will be on our terms as Africans, not like the French did and the Americans are doing, where we only get 10% and they still gonna have to sell the refined gold and minerals to us, tariffs. No, this one is not gonna be like that. This time they've built I think two gold processing factories and are currently considering to build a weapons manufacture plant, just as Ethiopia just built a weapons manufacturing plant. Big ups to Ethiopia for that. So basically, the AES is the manifestation of this revolution. Because we need to remember Traore, when he came to the COP in 2023, he didn't take money from the IMF. You see, the IMF came to Burkina Faso to trap them with this debt. But Ibrahim Traore, the youngest African president, he declined that. And look now today, it's like 2 years, going to 3 years, without the help of the white man, the black man is building Africa. 3 countries joined together. They are considering to destroy those borders in between them, but they're still finding strategies and systems so it doesn't create a power vacuum or some sort of chaos. So I think that's, yeah. Oh, the last thing is that we need to remember IMF is owned by Rothschild. Yeah, Rothschild, that family is the one that owns IMF. So if one family can loan money to a country, imagine that power leverage. Same problem we have here in South Africa, because we did take money from IMF in South Africa just now last year. So yeah, basically that is the issue I have with AES. And oh yeah, AES is going to adopt a new flag. So we're interested to find out what flag are they going to introduce. I'm sure it's going to be Pan-African, obviously. So that's about it about the AES for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, General Nanuki. Sister Tapua posed a question in the chat. She asked, did Burkina Faso refuse to pay its debts to France? I don't know, General, if you have an answer to that.
Burkina Faso, in fact, AES is debt-free. They paid up all their debt. There is no debt they have now currently.
Thank you, General. Sister Tapua, I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Chair, if I may add to what General said in terms of the debt freedom.
Yes, please do.
I understand from Dr. Rikana Kwau's presentation to Al Jazeera that the reason that they had the money to pay these debts, one of the reasons, if not the key reason, is that the uranium that was being mined by France or French companies, they were paying Burkina Faso about 0.8 cents in a dollar for the uranium. I can't remember how many grams or how many kilos. But what France did was that France then turned around and sold the same amount of uranium for $200 US dollars on the market. And now we are talking about kilograms and kilograms of uranium. So if you are getting 86 cents and then suddenly you have control and you are now getting the 200, you can imagine the vast amount of resources that has entered Burkina Faso just by the action on the uranium front. We're not talking about gold, diamonds, and so on. We're not talking about those, just uranium. And so that has brought in resources. And so Burkina Faso can afford to just pay off its debts and focus on developing Burkina Faso for the people of Burkina Faso. And this is in line with the Pan-African position that the welfare of the people is the supreme law. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. Sister Tapua, you had unmuted yourself. Did you have something to say in response to the last two presentations? Sister Tapua? Okay, I will be taking, once again, the floor is open. So please put your hand up if you have anything to add or comment or ask a question. Sister Ida, your hand is up.
Yes.
You have the mic.
Brother Kwame, was it Niger rather than Burkina Faso for uranium? I thought it was Niger that was
Yes,
being paid so little.
yes. So Niger, is it Niger? It must be Niger.
Niger, yeah. I thought it was that.
Yes. So sorry for my miss.
No,
miss.
that's okay. Thank you.
I think both. Sorry to interrupt. Both, because I think the Burkina Faso, sorry, Chair, I just crashed it, was Traore looking at the former president's of cheaply some mineral that is used to produce electricity in France. So what the commonality within these countries is they've realized the exploitation, and each one of them has a way of mitigating against what used to be used against them to gather resources to develop. So I think both countries or all the countries have similar experiences.
Thank you, Sister. Thank you, Sister Tapua.
Oh, no, I put my hand.
Sister Chisomo, then after that we'll have Sister Ida. Sister Chisomo.
Hello and good evening.
Good evening,
Yeah,
Sister.
on the story about Burkina Faso is fascinating and at the same time so scary because we've never seen anything develop at such speed and scale. And then you wonder why it's never happened before. And also, it just goes to show that our leaders don't care at all. Was it because they feared the white people, or they're just so dumb not to understand what they were doing or signing off? Or my opinion is just that they didn't care as to what's going to happen to us when they take all this money, when they borrow. Because my observation is that it's not usually them coming to us to lend us the money. We go to them to ask for this money. For example, my government will every day, oh, we're trying to find this money. Oh, this one has given this money. And they don't even tell us what they've done with the money. At the end of the day, obviously, they are financing their political parties in preparation for the next election. So they keep borrowing and borrowing. They're told to devalue the money, devalue the money, devalue the money. And who in the right sense of mind would just accept all this and expecting the nationals to survive through it all? They don't seem to care really. And also in recent times in my country, because we've devalued ours almost to 80% by this time. So now people are complaining and complaining and complaining. There's riots everywhere and violence everywhere because people are just so angry. So now they've turned around and say, they're now turning around and saying, oh, don't worry. You used to buy the bag of maize for 6,000. You're now buying it for 150. So imagine, you're going to sell it for 150 and not 6,000 anymore. How does anybody just turn around and start convincing people 150 is okay? But when you get that 150, what can you do with it when it has no value at all? They can't buy anything or procure anything in the country because the money is so useless. And now they're trying to convince people to say, oh, you know what? When you sell your maize, you're now going to get 150 instead of the previous 6,000. So they keep manipulating and manipulating and manipulating. They don't even teach the public to how to look after themselves, how to grow these things, because they convince them that we're going to help you. We're going to give you a bag of rice and a bag of fertilizer. So all these debts and all these whatevers, we know the money doesn't go where it's supposed to go. We can't point anything that they've done with the money. So when I watch Traore, every time I go on YouTube, there's something about him, so many videos about him, to the extent that I'm thinking, is this really happening, or people have just started cheering this man to say, oh, he's done this today, he's done this today. Oh, 5 minutes ago, he did this 5 minutes. And when I saw the currency thing and the what is it? It's the currency and I can't remember what else that comes with the currency thing. And I'm thinking, is this true, or people now making things up? But our brother here has just confirmed it's happening. The currency is happening, and this is happening, and that is happening. Yeah, so it's happening to a speed that is becoming unbelievable, but it has happened. And he was the other day for International Women's Day. He went to the villages to see women farmers, how much they're growing, which I don't see happening in my country. But he was encouraging them and telling them how he's going to help them, that he's going to give them machinery. They don't have to do it the way they're doing it anymore. They'll find the markets. And women are the drivers of all this food and whatnot, which was a really, really good speech. And I'm thinking, are leaders actually watching these videos, or they're just pretending he doesn't exist?
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Chisomo. Sister Ida, I had your hand up right behind Sister Chisomo. Now down.
I did have my hand up because I was going to say, even though we don't hear too much about it, it would seem that Burkina Faso has so much gold, and it was almost being shipped out in the same way that Brother Kwame was saying about the uranium. But now that they've started manufacturing it for themselves, I think it is the gold. At least there's a rumor that it is the gold that he's using to buy and manage to get all these things done. So I really wanted to compare it with, look, Ghana was the Gold Coast, and yet look at how much disruption, disaster that is going on with people at small scale mining, all the mercury that is polluting waterways and stuff like that. And yet, so we should be really taking an interest in how they are mining their gold in Burkina Faso. But I think that theirs is big scale when they get the gold. It's not like small scale people panning water and stuff like that for it. I don't know, but there must be a way that they're managing to mine it without so much destruction. That's the word I'm looking for. So that's it, really. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the last country in the Sahel states, which at the moment I can't name, but seems to be the biggest, we don't hear how they're making their money. We don't really hear much about them. So, if anybody can tell us a bit about that other state, it would be interesting to hear. Thank you.
Sister Ida, if you remember the name of the state, just let us know.
There are 3 states. There's Burkina Faso, there's Niger, and
it's Chad.
Is it Chad? No, I thought it was another name.
The Chad. We're not hearing much about Chad.
Mali.
It's Mali. Maybe it's Mali. But we don't really hear how they are making, what money they're getting, or what has happened, how they're managing to make money. That I'd love to hear what's happening in Mali. Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Right, thank
Yes, give thanks, family. Can I answer that question?
Sorry, yes, please go ahead.
Give thanks for that question, Mama Africa. We need to remember General Assimi Goïta is actually the chairperson of AES, not Traore. The reason Traore is more famous than Mali is because he is the youngest. So he's a youth. So there's a lot of hype under him. But the chairperson is Assimi Goïta. And just now, they've done a military training. Russian experts were training some African soldiers there in Mali. And in Mali, I think they are, and the way I see it, I think it's a secret thing. They are building a nuclear power plant there. I don't know whether it's going to be in Burkina Faso or in Mali straight. That nuclear power plant, we know what it means. So, and then another thing on the spiritual side, if you can remember that story of the Anunnaki I told you. On 2027, 2 years from now, the Dogon people of Mali are going to celebrate the Sigi, which is that 50-year rotation of Series A to Series B star system. So I can say that the Black Gods are the ones who are making sure that Mali is safe, so that celebration must take place because it's very, very important for Black people in the world as all. So I think Mali is the most key area that must remain out of any pollution. So I think I get why this is happening the way it's happening. And that's why you asked that question, why is Mali so quiet? Mali is actually the main country there for what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, General. I think perhaps I've mentioned it to my comrades in CFG that knowing what has happened to our former leaders that have been fallen, because all they've done is try to bring justice to and be good leaders, we have to accept that some of what we're going to do has to be kind of covered, because we know that these people that are against us having our full dignity and self-determination are very trigger happy, you see. So like Brother General has said, I also understand why it's happening the way it's happening, you know. It's not safe yet. So yeah, I kind of see what the point that he made there. Brother Coco, you have the mic now.
Thank you, comrades. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I would like to thank my brothers, Brother Kwame and Brother Pigbin, for setting the scene, and also your report, General Anunnaki. This is a broad topic. It's a massive topic, and it's not something we can solve in one evening. Taking into account that we have not been able to solve it in the past 60 years plus. And having said that, allow me to take you back to why do we have these problems in the first place? We are talking about international financial institutions, the institutions which were formed post the Europe Great Second War, which they then called the Second World War. So from their roots, you'll understand that they were never intended for the colonies. They were intended for the masters. Hence, if they were set up to serve the masters, they are serving the masters well. They will continue to serve the masters well until such time that the masters are tired of them. So Africa, during the period post that great European war, was still under colonization. Hence, when these institutions were set up, they were meant to help those countries in Europe rebuild, get better after the war, which again they used using African resources. And what they did, unfortunately, which was the tragic consequence, is when the Africans asked for freedom, asked for independence. Let's define that independence clearly. The Africans were asking for both political and economic independence. They gave the Africans political independence. But without an economic independence, there is nothing you can do with your country. When Pigman was talking about debt, there was something called HIPIC. They introduced HIPIC in the 1990s when I was a young economist at the bank, from which some countries benefited from, like Zambia, because Zambia is a classic case of how the IMF mismanaged an African country. Zambia, if you wanted a case study, Zambia is that. It was badly managed. So when they had that debt and they were heavily indebted, they were given another program in which its debt was cancelled. But that debt has come back again to bite the Zambians. As you know, Zambia was under another debt, this time with the Chinese at the forefront, but all the other international institutions also lend into the Zambians. The problem here is if you contract debt, so Pigman, to answer your question, concessional versus non-concessional. Concessional is in lighter terms, is what the international financial institutions or multilateral organizations give you with reduced interest rate and longer repayment terms. Whereas non-concessional is what you borrow from the Paris Club at the higher interest rate, much higher interest rate, and with stiff terms. Right? That is the difference. You can't just borrow debt for no reason. But most of our countries, they borrow debt, but the structure in or the transformation programs which they were investing in, they were never meant to bring back the investments they were putting in. You understand what I mean? It means you can't keep borrowing just to consume. You need to borrow to invest, like what Dr. Nkrumah was doing in Ghana, with lots and lots of investment that he did before they toppled him. But this is a system. It's a whole system. We can't just look at one system and say we can solve it. Because as I said, they lend us money. We take that money, we use it for instance, just to import. Because once we have issues with our balance of payments debt, our currency start declining. We cannot import the goods that we need. So they lend us money to buy from them again. So where are we investing that money to get it back? So it's a system which I said is working to keep us in a cyclical debt. And to break from that is taking hold of our resources, our critical resources, which is what the alliance of the Sahel countries are doing. They have taken control of their resources. That's important. They control their resources, so they have economic independence, whereas most of the other countries don't have economic independence. Kenya is another classic example. We continue to export coffee, tea, all of those stuff that the Kenyans don't consume. We are producing stuff that we don't need and then importing stuff that we need to produce in our countries. That's why I'm saying it's bigger. It's bigger than just the international financial institution. They were just at the center, meant to facilitate the exploitation of Africa. And one of them is, I think, in a book by Matt Kennard and Claire Provost, they talked about that post-1965, they created an institution within the World Bank that not even the World Bank colleagues themselves knew about this court, International Court of Arbitration. That International Court of Arbitration is meant to implement the laws which have been, again, legislated somewhere else, but apply to us as Africans. And Matt Provost talks about South Africa. That South Africa had the BEE, as you know, Black Economic Empowerment. And one of the companies was Italian, that they wanted to implement BEE, but that company took South Africa to the International Court of Arbitration and lost. So South African government lost, which meant that Italian government could do as they wanted. And this was implemented after Dr. Nkrumah wrote Neo-Colonialism. So they understood the system very well, but they had to go and tighten it so African countries continue to stay within this system. We continue to be the consumers, not the producers, not in charge of our own destiny. As a result of that, that is the biggest thing. It's the root problem. We need to go to the root problem, solve that, then we can sort out everything else. I agree totally with what Brother Kwame said, with all of those reasons he put forward. But the important thing is, are we the masters of our own destiny? Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Coco. Brother, oh, he's gone. Okay, maybe he'll come back. Sister Chisomo, you have the mic.
Hi. No, I just had a question that I was thinking about this Sahel region. That is it because is it all of them that are military leaders? That they are perhaps able to protect themselves, whereas our leaders are so scared. They just take instructions. These instructions that of no use to anybody, just to protect their own lives. I don't know.
Sister Chisomo,
hello.
to answer that question, just imagine that you control the army, you control the weapons of coercion. Yeah. And then imagine a civilian government where the commander-in-chief is a civilian, but the armed forces are controlled by someone else. And so if you have a government, a civilian government, and those who control the heavy weapons can be bought off, then it's very easy for you to be removed from office. If you challenge the international financial institutions, they will assassinate you. And you remember that Brother General Naki has mentioned that there have been 23 attempts at removing Traore. Right, so it's not there because he's there because they control the weapons, and also they have help from international organizations and international interested parties like Russia. So that's the reason he's still there. But imagine a civilian government with no military. Come on, they will just kill you. They will kill you. So that is the reason. So your question is why? How come he's able to do it? The reason is because he's a military leader. That's the reason.
And is it all full of them military leaders?
Well, the government is controlled by the military. So the long and short
but is it all 4 countries?
Yeah, I think they're all, General, aren't they all military leaders? Burkina Faso, Mali.
Yeah, they're all military.
They're all military leaders.
Three countries military.
Yeah. So they know where to go and what to do about these things.
Well, yeah, but they control the army, and the armed forces are those who control the weapons of coercion, the weapons of violence. So how are you going to remove them unless you take them on?
And then they've got the Russian backing as well.
Yeah, and you see the problem for the civilians. This is why the Ghanaian civilians also under the previous government, as well some of the Nigerian civilians, those of ECOWAS. The reason they were unhappy was because then what it meant was that these kind of soldiers were showing the way for other soldiers on the continent to act in the national interests. So that is why ECOWAS was bent on taking action against the soldiers. And the problem for ECOWAS was that when civilians did exactly what the soldiers did, ECOWAS did nothing. So take Ivory Coast, where the gentleman changed the constitution so he can stay in office, backed by France. They did nothing. So the people were saying, well, when civilians did it, you did nothing. Why are you now doing it? Because soldiers are doing it. You see, so the answer to your question is that and this goes to the heart of why some Pan-Africanists think that only war can liberate and unify Africa. Yeah, right. They believe that for Africa to have one continental government, there has to be war. Between who? Well, between those who love the neo-colonialists, those who are happy with the status quo, those who are happy, they're okay if your mother can't have health care, but they can fly their mothers to Europe to have the best health care. They're happy with that. If they want holidays, they can fly out and go to European capitals, even to the US, and spend some time with their children, their grandchildren, and for them the air ticket is like a local transport service, in the first class. So there are Africans who are happy. Let's be clear. There are Africans who are happy with the way Africa is, and most of them are liberals and conservatives. And then there are Africans who are very unhappy, the radicals, those who are very unhappy with the way Africa is. So they argue that at some point there's going to be war between these two groups, the liberal conservatives against the radicals. And whoever wins then will take control of the continent. But as we speak, the liberals and the conservatives are in total charge of the continent. The result, as you can see, is poverty, underdevelopment, pollution of water, as I mentioned, water has been polluted with mercury and all kinds of developmental nonsense. Thank you.
Yeah, because just last comment. Because in my country, with all the violence that's going on at the moment, the army is now out. And I remember somebody making a comment and says, the moment you see the army out, it means that government is on its way out. So I don't know what that means.
Thank you, Sister Chisomo, and thank you, Brother Kwame. I would like to remind the comrades that have their hands up, we have 10 minutes. We would like to give everyone a chance to speak, so please be cognizant of that. So, Sister Tapua, you have the mic, and then after that, we have Comrade Bongani. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I add on to what the other comrades have said about being led by the military? I observed keenly the developments that we Burkina Faso, and I was by the awareness of the ordinary people in the street about the roles was playing in siphoning and exploiting them. And the groups started with very small groups, but they soon ballooned. And there was so much pressure from the public, not even the army, from the public. So there must have been some work that was going on behind the scenes, which is what I think we need to be working on, so that, like the people in Burkina Faso, who had been exploited to the point of they couldn't bear it anymore, we need to make sure that people are aware of what is happening. I'm thinking particularly of my country, Zimbabwe, where people are so coward now. Calling out a demonstration is like asking people to commit suicide. There's a call that's gone out for the 31st of March because of the politics going on in here, in this country. But we are in a position of not even trusting the military. And the ex-combatants who fought during the war don't even trust their own the military. Now you've got a conflict within the military between people who are pro and against, people who can see the wrong that's being done, and people who can actually stand up and say, I went to war, I held the gun for this reason, it's not happening. But awareness amongst the people is what's lacking. So, like I've always said, I think we need a bit more education, subtle education. The things that we're talking about here must find their way to the ordinary person in the street so they understand their plight. In Zimbabwe, people are resorting to religion, like what we've been discussing in the Thursday meeting. They've given up. They would rather go and find some magic potion to get work. They don't even understand that the unemployment rate is 80% for this reason. They think it's because I've done something wrong. My ancestors against me. I need to appease them. So we've got some work. Thank you. I'll stop there for now.
Yeah, Chair, can I, before Brother Bongani speaks, and Brother Bongani's article, in fact, it tells how Brother Bongani has addressed this issue in his article, which I have put on here. Before he speaks, can I make a brief comment on what Sister Tapua says? Tapua, make no mistake, yeah, when Africans see a war that will advance their interests, they will fight for it. But the example you gave, no Zimbabwean in their right sense will go to fight for something of which they are not clear will result in benefit for them. We can call them cowards all we like, yeah, but ordinary people, when they can see that something is in their interest, they are happy to lay down their lives for what they believe in. So if you look at what happened in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, when we heard that ECOWAS was going to invade them, do you realize that Africans, even in diaspora, were prepared to fly to Niger to fight on side by side with the Nigerians, right? And when Ethiopia came under attack, if you recall, in that war, there were Africans in the diaspora who were prepared to fly to Ethiopia, at their own private cost to fight on the side of the Ethiopians. So please be assured that Africans will be prepared to fly to Zimbabwe if it is clear what Zimbabweans want and the obstacle that is in their way. So Africans are not cowards. People tend to say they are not cowards, but they're not stupid. They're not stupid. They're not going to go and fight in a war which they can see is really not their war, is really not in their interest. Even Americans have realized that all these wars is for Israel. And now we've heard that they are saying, look, no more wars for Israel, even in America. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. Brother Bongani?
Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Oh, great. Thanks. Thanks a lot. I'll quickly run through from the first presentation and the speaker. Then I got disconnected. I think there is a speaker who was taking us from World War II. I think what I've grasped from the first presentation, though it talks about international finance cooperation, in essence, it talks about because he seems to be uncomfortable with the international finance corporations, thanks to his generosity in terms of trying to explain to us the categories and what's their functions, etc. That is appreciated. But I think what is lacking, even in the discussion itself that we're having, I think we seem to indulge a lot everywhere. Maybe there's too much on our table. But I think what he was trying to bring to our attention is the financial architect, is the global financial architect that we're currently navigating through it as African countries. To a great extent, I think it's just to say directly so that this global financial architect, it's basically financed through African minerals and resources. Now the question is, I think he lambasted that this doesn't require reforms. Rather, let's overhaul this thing. But now, if we are at that point of discussion, we need to try not to be all over, because we might try to solve everything at once and just don't solve any. Now, when we deal with the global financial architect, I fully agree with him that two aspects. It's either we reform or we destroy this thing and restart it. And we have a new global financial architect. That possible, we assume it should be inclusive of us as African, but we must learn to debate financial architect when we debate financial architect. Now, there are opportunities with that effect as to, in my view, I'm not too sure which I follow. Do we overhaul it in a sense, pronouncing it as a reform, or we destroy the whole thing and we start it from scratch? But what I'm sure of is that something needs to happen. Now, what are the opportunities in any of the two? Be it we destroy this thing and then we start a new architect, or we overhaul or reform the system. It's just that is that the geopolitical landscape seems to be also shaken up, meaning which there are possibilities of some kind of an order, a future order that is slightly different, or is going to be possible, usually different to what we have. Now, the African countries, Africans ourselves, we have tendencies. I really celebrate what is happening in Sahel and other progressive countries. But we have a tendency of, well, of course, we are operating within the space of the global ecosystem, but this tendency, it's visible amongst us as Africans, where it's either we move from west to east, or we move from east to west. Am I still audible, Chair?
Yes, and just to let you know that we've come
Am
to
I
the
still
end. So if you could round up, please, Comrade Bongani.
Oh, pity, sorry, pity. Let me, okay. The fellow who talks, comrade who talked about the World Bank, the World War II, I think he was bringing us closer to the debate. And I was listening earnestly in what he was explaining to us as to the formula of neoliberal system, how it was structured. And I think he emphasized it was more about the master, not necessarily about the colonies. Therefore, now when we debate the financial or the international financial corporations, that is the financial architect, of course, there are many things. I can see now, like the time is up, but we've honestly consumed a lot on non-financial architect debate. When we debate this, we need to understand these formulas. There have been a formula for a neoliberal system that led to things like the system, or the Keynesian system, that led to what we have now, the debt approach that drives us, both the government debt and the household debt. There are formulas in there that as we try to engage on this, we must derive an African formula. And that requires us to engage on this and not to go all over the place. If we discuss military, let's discuss the military warfare, how we deal with it, and not be all over the place. We'll discuss finance, let's deal with finance. Now, what I would like to bring to the attention, coming to closure, Chair, of the components of such a formula. You know, our government, of course, is true, they are being controlled through debt. Somebody mentioned who owns World Bank or IMF, etc. The issues of the financial repression with financialization, we might complain, for example, what are the impediments of industrialization? It is true to a great extent, Comrade Kwame, you might disagree with that. To a great extent, we contribute to our displacement as far as industrialization is concerned, because we run away from the debate of finance and economics. The issue here is when we deal with financialization, it's a global phenomenon that really distracts, that really works on speculation, and it exploits across the globe. Financialization is simple as the capturing of the state of the economy by the financial institutions. And now it
Apologies,
gets
Brother
then.
Bongani, could you round up?
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
No, as in you can make a conclusion and then we'll end the meeting. Okay, Brother Pigeon, I'll hand over to you to close the meeting and make any announcements.
Thank you. Thank you, comrades. Brother Kwame, will it be in order if I propose that you, Brother Coco, our economist here, and Brother Bongani, if it's possible, we have this session part 2 maybe next weekend so that we can deal in this economics? Because I see there's a lot from what Brother Coco said, a lot from what you're saying, and a lot also from what Brother Bongani is raising in terms of economics. And I think it's very important that we do look at these economics. Brother Kwame, what do you think?
Well, the only reason I put together my presentation was because nobody came forward. Listen to Brother Bongani, who I have interacted with in the past. Brother Bongani, you will agree with me that you could have done the initial presentation for us, and then we then have the discussion, because you have a lot to say. And it turns out you've even written an article, which I'm sharing with brothers and sisters on the question, on this very question on reforming the institution. And you, Brother Bongani, in this article, have called for South Africa to lead in the reform of the IFIs. Incidentally, BRICS is come up with his own IFI. So it'll be interesting to hear from you. I'm not sure, Brother Pigeon, that we need another session on this very issue, because our topic for next Saturday, which is next Saturday is the 29th of March, and the 29th of March, our topic is so today is the 22nd. So our topic, I'm just checking now, our topic for the last month in March is implementing continental-wide policies. We haven't detailed what policies, so if in that sense, Brother Pigeon, I think it's okay for us to look at reforming IFIs in the context of implementing continent-wide policies. So if Brother Mongani is arguing that South Africa should lead the reformation of IFIs, then he should broaden it and do a presentation for us. Brother Mongani, I hope you're happy to do that and do a presentation for us, not just South Africa. The AU, the African Union, must itself lead, because this issue is not only a South African issue, it's a continent-wide issue. It includes also those in the north, like Morocco, Egypt, and so on. So, Brother Pete, it depends on if Brother Bongani is prepared to lead this for us. And Brother Coco, also, Brother Coco, you also had the opportunity to do a presentation and you didn't come forward. So please, I hope if we are going to go down this path, then please, Brother Mongani, Brother Coco, I hope you will also come forward and do proper presentations for us, and not comment on presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I will get in touch with Brother Bongani, but of course, since our next session is in the same reforms, we must start with probably the financial and economic reforms. And in this discussion, maybe it can then form our part to the next week. So I'll get in touch with you, Brother Bongani. I hope I have your contact. That's why you are here. I will be able to look at it clearly so that I can get it.
Both Brother Bongani and Brother Coco, so they can fight it out amongst each other. So we listen. The second one.
Okay, so thank you.
So let's hear from both of them.
No, thank you.
Hold on.
Okay, so
Mongani,
get prepared.
Hold on, Brother Mongani, I hope you've heard me. Are you happy to do a presentation for us next week? I know you're a very busy man.
No, I've listened to all of you. I've done a lot of listening. It was interesting to me.
Are you going to present next week?
I don't know.
I know you're a very busy man.
I'll hear from the request and take it from there. And I can't just like now.
We are giving the request now. You can respond. You look at your diary. If you can't, yes. If you can't, let us know.
I'll have to think. I'll have to think through. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank
Okay.
you.
So thank you very much, comrades, for your time. As it's been stated, next week we'll be doing that in regards to the reforms and policies as well. And I do want to appreciate this. I think this conversation will keep on moving so that we can get to the heart of this. But Kwame always say economics is also at the heart of our problem. And I think we've touched on it just a little bit. So we are inviting you again to our session, as Brother Kwame said again, on our tomorrow. We were looking last week about the mythology, about traditional African society, the social structure of our African society, and individual responsibility in a society through a review of a book we are doing on dictators by Dr. Iti. And we will be looking to more in terms of politics of the society, statelessness, and or statelessness countries, because people don't believe in the aspect of being stateless. But these are things that have been covered by Dr. Georgia Iti. So we will be looking at that tomorrow in our review at the same time, 6 p.m. GMT. And on Thursdays, we are going on with very interesting conversation on, we've just finished the French Revolution that Kwame Nkrumah is looking into depth in terms of social strife in a society. And I think what you're discussing is also strife that is ripe enough for a revolution, and all those philosophies actually affect and cause revolution in a society. So also feel free to join us next Thursday for 6 p.m. GMT. And all these recordings are always available on our YouTube channel. Please always help us to share it widely when I share it with you via your inbox, so that these recordings and this conversation, as someone has suggested, can reach the massive Africans. Thank you, Sister Mera, for co-chairing this meeting, Brother Kwame as well, and thank you for everybody who has contributed to our discussion today. I really appreciate your input, and it's your input we as a team at CSG keep us moving. We've never delayed, we've never failed, and we'll always be here to do our best to the revolutionary struggle of Pan-Africanism. So thank you very much, and let's meet again tomorrow, Tuesday for Kiswahili, or Thursday for CSG, or next Saturday for the same unification. Back to you, Brother Kwame, in case of anything.
Yeah, no, that's it. Just so let people know, we are going to be playing Sonny Okosun's Fire in Soweto.
As they leave.
Leave as well. We don't do informal sessions after our meeting, so please leave whenever you want and while the music plays. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night.